We do have a couple patron saints by the name of George Lennon and John Carlin. Did you catch? Yeah, okay, good. You got it. Yeah, John Lennon and George Carlin. So, yes, and they, at least one of them knew before he passed that he was our saint, one of our patron saints. He thought we were weird. And John, you may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. That would make a great song, don't you think? So, yeah. And George, and this was done a long time ago, so I don't even know who was our pres at the time, but in America, anyone can become president. That's the problem. So, hey, you know, the Divine Fellowship, we've been doing this for 17 years. It's kind of hard to believe. Jan and I do have other careers, though, but we love everything we do. And, you know, when we started the church, Jan and I came from very Christian backgrounds, but that wasn't quite what we wanted anymore. You know, so we've always tried to do things at the church where, you know, if you have the Christianity is kind of over here on the right a little bit, and then maybe New Age is kind of over here on the left. And we try to stay like in the middle and do one of these things. But we don't go too far to the left or too far to the right. So I mean, Jan and I are Christians, and so some of the services are a little bit more Christian. Some are a little bit something else. And today is going to be a little bit something else. So, okay, I'd kill for the Nobel Prize. Borrow money from pessimists. They don't expect it back. Half the people you know are below average. 99% of lawyers give the rest a bad name. 82.7% of all statistics are made up on the spot. A conscience is what hurts when all the other parts feel so good. So, probably true. Things that make you go, Is that the one to be disappointed? Oh, yeah. In prosperity, our friends know us. In adversity, we know our friends. You guys are sitting in a spot I don't remember seeing you in before. I have to readjust to this. They're sitting in a different spot, so I mean, I just have to... You know how everybody gets their spots, you know, and then when you switch, it's like, no, you haven't been here for weeks. Oh, you've been over there. We will either find a way or make one. That was Hannibal, 247 BC. He did do that. All right. Prior to the establishment of laws protecting consumers, many manufacturers took advantage of a lax situation. Textile makers were particularly guilty in early decades of machine-made cloth. It was customary to stretch fabric as wide as possible after milling. A cloth stretching frame was called a tenter, from an early French term meaning to stretch. Rows of frames stood in the open air about many a pioneer factory. All the edges of each tenter were supplied with hooks. Wet cloth stretched upon the tenter hooks might pull and strain and even split before shrinking. Since a person in an extremely uncomfortable situation resembles cloth stretched for drying, anyone caught in a dilemma is still said to be on tenter hooks. Many things I don't know. Many things I do. In 1980, it was 31 years after the Roadrunner cartoons debuted, 1949, in an episode called Soup or Sonic, and I remember this, I saw this one, and it was like, wow, really? Wile E. Coyote finally catches the Roadrunner. He then holds up a sign saying, okay, wise guys, you always wanted me to catch him, now what do I do? I saw that. That was great. It was great. I love the Roadrunner. Nancy, where are you? You're up. Oh, well, you know what? How did I do that? Jan, would you grab the handheld? Somebody? I don't have it. Here, you can just speak into my... Nancy, you can just speak in. Okay. We can get close. I'm not even sure I put batteries
All right.
in that one.
Okay.
Did you put batteries in? I don't think.
We'll find
I don't-
out.
grab
I don't think there's batteries in it. I'll go take care of it later. Sorry.
To give a May update, first of all, this doesn't have anything to do with May, but go Hawks! Okay, now that I got that out of the way, May is doing absolutely fabulous. She's been home since Tuesday night, and other than that first day when we brought her home, we put her right in the bed. We got a hospital bed for her to use, and the rest of the time she gets up in the morning, and I'm telling you, she's getting up around 6:30. She comes into the living room, she sits on the recliner, and she's there until she goes to bed at night. The one thing that does happen is I have put up a strict regimen for her, that she gets up 6 times a day, and she does her walker, and I made a path through the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, and she has to do 5 laps 6 times a day. And she's doing it. She's doing really well on her spirometer breathing exercises, and she is so thankful for the second chance that she's gotten, even though this was a total surprise to all of us, including her. Though it shouldn't have been, because heart disease is in her family quite heavily. But just a reminder, pay attention, especially for women.
Especially for women.
The heart attack symptoms are so different than they are for men. Men, usually it's a pain in the chest, extreme pain in the chest in their left arm. Women, you think it's just indigestion. Hers started out kind of like she was choking, and got her to the hospital. They decided to go ahead and run because she got a little bit of chest pain with the choking because she couldn't breathe. So she was trying hard to breathe, and she thought that was all part related. So they did the blood test that they do to check your troponin levels, and they were elevated, which means she had had a heart event in the past. And we don't know if that was it, or if it happened a week before, a month before, or whatever the case is. So women, pay attention to whatever symptoms you have, because it's not going to be the chest pain. It's not going to be in the left arm. It's going to be a case of indigestion, shortness of breath, any of those types of things, which she's been having for quite a while now, the shortness of breath. She's been extremely tired.
And she's was a nurse.
Oh, forget that, because nurses are the worst patients anyway. Having lived with one for 20 years, they are the worst patients. So she's going to, they're going to deny everything. But, spouses and so forth to women, just pay attention to how they're talking, what they're saying, things like that. And a word of advice, especially if you're an older woman, when you go to the hospital, don't say that you're complaining of indigestion. Say, I am 73 years old and I'm having chest pains. You will be taken immediately into the emergency room. They will have a bed assigned to you. Because that happened with me. I had, well, not with me, but with May. Chris took May, her daughter took her to the hospital. I was about 15 minutes behind. But by the time I got there, she was in her room. She was already in a gown. She already was hooked up to machines, and they'd already taken the blood sample. So just keep that in mind. And even if you are a woman and you're doing the indigestion, say, well, I felt a little tightness in my chest or something like that. And that usually gets you in very fast. Very fast. So, but she actually wanted me to tell you all thank you for the prayers, particularly the prayer warriors. And I know that I was keeping Janice up to date, and there was one night that she woke up that she was afraid that she was, what was it? She was choking, I think it was, and she was really afraid that she was going to have a hard time breathing and stuff like that. And I just sent the message thinking Janice would get it, like first thing in the morning. I wasn't expecting her to get it at 3:45 in the morning when I sent it. So to those prayer warriors that were up at that time, thank you very much. To the rest of the prayer warriors that got it the next part of the morning, again, thank you very much. And she is a firm believer that God is good and that she has a second chance at life and is working her way to wellness. So just want to let you guys know. And things going well. If she's able next week, she misses coming to church tremendously, obviously. But if she's going along the path that she's been going, there is a possibility she might be able to come next week. If not, she should be here the week after.
Cool.
But just wanted to let you know that she is doing really well. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for all your prayers.
Okay. Cute shoes. I'm just going to skip to the end here. Jan needs extra time. Oops, that's not the one I was going to do. I'm going to do this one. The obedient wife. There was a man who had worked all of his life and saved all of his money, and a real miser when it came to money. Just before he died, I've done this one before, but I like it. Just before he died, he said to his wife, "When I die, I want you to take all of my money and put it in my casket with me. I want to take my money to the afterlife." And so he got his wife to promise him with all of her heart that when he died, she would put all of the money in the casket with him. Well, he died. He was stretched out in the casket. His wife was sitting there dressed in black, and her friend was sitting next to her when they finished the ceremony. And just before the undertakers got ready to close the casket, the wife said, "Wait just a minute." She had a small metal box with her, came over with the box and put it in the casket. Then the undertakers locked the casket and they rolled it away. So her friend said, "Girl, I know you are not that foolish enough to put all that money in the casket with your husband." The loyal wife replied, "Listen, I'm a Christian. I cannot go back on my word. I promised him that I was going to put the money into the casket with him." "You mean to tell me you put all that money in the casket with him?" "I sure did," said the wife. "I got it all together, put it into my account, wrote him a check. If he can cash it, he can spend it."
Go ahead and just do your thing.
Okay.
Real quick here. The communion that we have every week is put together by volunteers that help us out each week to do it. And this is a sign-up calendar for that. If you could just write your name if you would like to volunteer on Sunday, name and telephone number so we can remind you the day before. I would really appreciate it. Josie needs it for the calendar for next month. So I'm going to start that around. When it gets down to the back, go ahead and send it back up to the front and then I'll take it. Thanks.
I'm futzing around. Tracy and I have been working on a project. I want to talk to you about it for a minute. But first I have to tell you, I've been in judgment this week. I want to tell you about that. Last week, one of our members, little gal, 15, brought her baby. She had been abused by a stepfather, and the child was a result of that. And I was really in judgment about, it's going to be such a hard life for her. It's going to be so hard on that baby. It's hard on the grandma and the brother. And this is just so hard, and I'm just sad for them and all of that. And I heard, "Look again." And I remember looking at her carrying that baby when Phil brought her up to introduce her and the baby. She was beaming. She was beaming. And the judgment was mine. The pain was mine. And as I looked at that, I shifted. And I realized that that baby was this beautiful, precious, priceless gift. And who the flip cares how it got here? Here it is. And thank God this lovely family is so loving. They're welcoming this child, and the family is rallying together, and they're all getting some counseling, and they're all improving and pulling together as a team. And my world shifted. And when my world shifted in that moment, I realized that I'd been in judgment about myself. And I'd been in judgment about Phil. And I'd been in judgment about some circumstance. And there were other judgments that I'd had. And in that moment, when I shifted and I acknowledged that precious life, everything else shifted. And all those, it was like dominoes. All the other judgments just fell away. And when all those other judgments fell away, there was this huge influx and download of this amazing, loving energy. So Tracy and I have been working on this project, and it was like, don't you love it when God gives me a situation to go through so we can all learn? So I've created a shift happens jar. Don't you love it? And Tracy, come on up and bring your t-shirts. Tracy's created a couple of t-shirts here as a sample. Because shift happens. And it's a good thing.
Here's my dad. Okay, I'm working on one more. But,
Isn't that cool? Shift happens.
This is another.
So we're working on this process, and we're going to do a workshop where you can make your own t-shirt and go through this shift happens process. But in the meantime, because shift happens, we've got this lovely little happy bear, and when you find a moment where you're stuck and you shift out of that, whatever you did in that moment is a shift happens moment. Write it down, put it in the bucket, and we'll read it and share it. Because it could be as simple as seeing a sunrise, seeing a sunset, taking a deep breath. All of those things create shift. When we become mindful, judgment happens when we become fearful. Yes, exactly. But when we become aware, mindful and heartful, we can shift. And it's in that shift that all this wonderful download of loving presence and energy comes to us. And it's when we are in that moment of shift and really present in our lives without the fear, in the love and in the courage and the power, then that's when manifesting happens. We've been talking about manifesting. So we'll leave this in the back. Start, with our gratitudes and with prayer requests, that sort of thing. So all of that leads back to our manifesting. So briefly, I want to talk to you about manifesting. Remember me telling you that, I'm going to read this. If you're like most people, you might believe that you could improve your life if you just had a little more of that mysterious magic sauce, willpower. Research has shown that willpower is similar to a muscle and that it gets fatigued. Like I've been saying. This came from the EFT tapping solution with Nick Ortner. And here's what he says. You can say no to the cookie once. Then the second time it's offered and the third time, each of those choices require willpower and quickly exhaust it. It's not about willpower. It's about being in that state of preference. I prefer to eat healthy. And when you're in that state of preference, it doesn't require willpower. It doesn't require that energy. Just making a decision of what to wear in the morning, you may have exhausted your willpower already because you've already made a ton of decisions. Make sense? Or especially if you have to choose, do I want to wear these earrings or those earrings? Maybe I'm the only one that does that. So I want to talk to you about power, briefly. And that's going to lead us into our Maori healing circle. Power. Power, power, power. Not that one. Oh, please. Oh, please. Don't you love it? Yes, we do. All right, fine. We'll go backwards. This was not the way I was going to go, but here we are. If you ask anything according to his will, he hears it. put that in your little memory banks for a second. You ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend it on your pleasures. So according to the eternal purpose, I'm in Ephesians, blah, 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 blah. Read it yourself, chapter 3. That he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory. Well, do you want to be, I don't know, sorry. I'm hitting my own hot button here. That he would grant you, he's on his knees. I fall on my knees. That he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man. The power is in the inner man, that spiritual resource, not your willpower. Okay? So, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and if you can't do the Jesus thing, the Christ consciousness can dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ which surpasses knowledge, and you may be filled up to all the fullness of God. Here's isn't it? Gotcha? Haven't shut down yet, have you? Get back. Or here. You got it. Here's the part. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask or think, according to the power that resides within us. What's the power? That's the power of the inner man, the power of the ability to shift. If you are hoping to manifest a new car, love and appreciate the one you've got. Love it out of existence. Love the new thing into existence. That's the power of the inner man. If you want a new job, love the one you've got. There are people that don't have them. Okay, if you don't have a job and want one, love your free time. Like I've been saying. So that brings us to, let's get some insights about what's important for me to do. What can I do to help myself in this journey? The Maori Healing Circle is a process that the Native New Zealanders would go to their shaman, the tribes people would go to their shaman once a year. And they would ask him, what do I need to know? And he would give them 5 stones. Each of them meant something. And he'd draw this big circle in the dirt. And he'd have them stand at one edge of the circle and throw the stones over their shoulder. Where the stones landed and which stones were where had meaning and significance for the people, and that would help guide them throughout the rest of the year. So we've taken this process, and I've tweaked it a bit, and we're using pen and paper so we don't have to throw stones. And this will offer you guidance. Now, if you want to have, what do I need to know this year? That's wonderful. But this also works for a specific situation. What's up in your life right now? Are you clouded about something? Is there something that you would like to have an inspired directive for? Then ask about that. All right? And here's the process. On your paper, make yourself a really big circle. Oh my God, it's not perfect. It's okay. I don't have green ink. It's okay. Now have you take a minute and settle into your heart space. Because your heart is the part of you that is connected to this inner man. The mind, the brain, is this wonderful tool that assists us. If we use too much mind and not enough heart, it becomes this cruel taskmaster and sets us up for that judgment stuff. But when they're in harmony, and they're in harmony with divine purpose for you, man, you're unstoppable. Unstoppable. And unstoppable in ways that you can't imagine. Things will happen in your life that you never expected, that are far beyond what you could have ever even asked. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I could have asked for that. Because it was beyond my even comprehension. That's how God works. That's how Spirit works. Whatever that is for you. I don't want to use the God word if it offends you. Whatever. So, got your circle? All right. Have you got your situation? Now, as you're pondering this, open your heart space, open your crown chakra, and ask to be guided in this process. And I'm going to mention some symbols to you, and where you have a sense they belong on the page is going to have significance to you. There's no wrong. Just whatever feels right to you, please be true to that. Honor that for yourself. So the first symbol we're going to put on our page is a snake. Whatever kind of snake, whatever you want it to be doing, apply a snake somewhere on your page. Ask to be guided where would be the right place for that. When we finish all of these, then I will tell you what the location will mean for you, according to the Maori healing. Yes, sir?
Also, any of these objects can be
Any size you want. Any size, anywhere. Are we done? A flower. A flower. A pathway. A pathway. A bird. If I go too fast, just raise your hand now. Slow down. A mountain. A butterfly. A butterfly. The really good news about this is that you don't have to be an artist. Stick figures and strange things are okay. Shelter. Create for yourself a shelter. A tree. A tree. Did you get it? A box. B-O-X box.
What was before box?
A tree. your spatial relationships aren't right, it'll be kind of crooked. It's okay. It's still a box. A door. A star. A star. A sun. A sun. And a cloud. Okay, have we got them? Now, take your paper and fold it. And fold it. You guys are doing so good. Usually, we kind of get scattered into 10 different directions. All right. Any symbols that you have in this lower left quadrant has to do, I'm sorry, lower, you know, my paper's all screwed up. So when you get this, you're going to have to tweak it. Yeah, that's your right, isn't it? Oh, good Lord. Okay, this is your physical realm. Don't you just love it when I'm human? This one is emotional. This is mental. And this is spiritual. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So, whatever you have in your physical realm is physical action to take. Or has an emphasis in this physical, tangible world. Whatever is in this quadrant has to do with your emotions. This is your lower left, is emotions. So whatever's going on here, whatever symbol shows up here, and I'll give you the identification of what the symbols are here in a minute. That's emotional work that you're doing right now that will help you with whatever your request was. The mental arena, this is your decisions, intent. The emotional is how you feel about it. The mental is what you think about it, your decisions, how you're going to perceive it mentally. And the spiritual is spiritual action to take. Make sense? Because there's work that we can do in the spiritual realm that's very different than work that we do in the physical realm. Work that we do in the spiritual realm affects the physical. Work we do in the mental affects the physical. Work we do in the emotional affects the physical. And what we do in the physical, emotional, and mental affects the spiritual. They're all interrelated. But it's important to be really clear about that. Intent. intent, decisions that you make, choices that you make. Yes, ma'am?
What if some fall into
Then they both are activated. They work together. They're both there. So what I want to do here is I want to give you the basic overview of, I have a handout for you. You do not have to write all this stuff down. I almost said a bad word. You don't have to write all this shift down. No. It gets to be easy. It gets to be easy. But I want you to hear it, and I want you to hear it before I give you the paper. Because sometimes once we get the paper, then we're off. And I want it to be in a community here and answer any questions about a particular thing at the same time. Your snake. Wherever you put your snake, this has to do with wisdom, healing, and regeneration. If your snake is in the physical realm, it's time for some physical healing. If it's in the emotional realm, it's time for some emotional healing. If it's in the mental arena, it's time for some mental healing. And if it's in the spiritual, it's time for spiritual healing. Okay? Spiritual healing could look like forgiveness. Mental healing, forgiveness could fit in all of them. That make sense? Yes, ma'am.
Does it matter whether it's inside or outside the circle?
If it's outside the circle, it's less of an influence. The closer it is to the half out of which quadrant?
Of the physical realm?
Okay, so half of your battle is physical. Now, what kind of snake you drew is significant. Does it have a tongue? Okay. If it has a tongue, then, let me see. Communication is required. Communication, speak up for yourself. It also has to do with that's how they sense things. So pay attention to your senses, what you're sensing. You'll have physical sense of what's right and what's wrong for your physical form. Okay? If your snake is enjoined, meaning the head and the tail are connected, that could mean healing, including relationships. If it's coiled, might want to rest. If it's ready to strike, might be time to set some boundaries. If it has eyes, define your vision. What do you really want? What's really important here? Take a new look. Take a new look. Shift on that one. Or share your vision. If it has a pattern, did you draw a pattern on your snake? Notice recurring themes. This is whatever you're experiencing is a result of a pattern, of a recurring theme. If it's filled in, take care of your health. If it has a rattle, you have the ability to protect yourself. And it's time to acquire that sense of safety. So wherever that snake is, whether it's in the physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, all of these apply. Make sense? Okay. Flower. Your flower is emotional unfolding. Now that seems really weird because it's an emotional thing, but you could be anywhere. This is about opening up and blooming. Bloom where you're planted, that sort of thing. New opportunities to be happy. New opportunities to be happy. Where is yours? Right in the middle? New, all of it. All of it. Full meal deal. You got the whole thing. Make sense? See how that works? Is this like fun or what? Your pathway. This is the direction your attention is currently taking you. Now, if your pathway goes from one realm or one quadrant to another quadrant, then that's letting you know that you're moving from this arena into that arena. It's also letting you know it might be time to walk a new way, and this will tell you how to do it. Okay? So if it's all in your physical realm, then it's time to take care of your physical self. Time to take care of your work, get your job together, get your physical world together. That makes sense? If it meanders through all of them, then follow what path it takes. Does it start in the spiritual? Then if you want to be happy physically, start spiritually. You know, where does your path take you? That's significant for you. The bird. is a spiritual message delivered to you. Now, the kind of bird is really significant. If you drew a chicken, it might be time to take a look and see if there's fears present that you might want to take a look at. An eagle, great spirit, is sending you a message. An owl, there might be a message from the other side. Robins, they're the first birds we see in the spring, a new beginning. And whichever quadrant that is letting you know where that energy is coming to you. There is a message coming for you about that. You have a duck? Duck! Where is it?
Mental. It's in the mental.
Okay, so this might be suggesting to you that other people's opinions may be affecting you, so you may need to shelter from that a bit.
How about a crane?
A crane? Is it on 1 foot or 2?
2.
Okay, in mental. Okay, cranes are wonderful because they stand in the water and yet they're out in the air and they can eat and move around and they have very keen eyesight and they wait until it's time and they go for it. So this is be in balance because they're all about balance, and you'll know when the time is right to move and get what you really want. Got that?
What about a seagull?
A seagull? Who said that? When was the last time you went to the ocean? Which quadrant is your seagull in?
Right in the middle of all 4.
Okay, it feels to me like your soul is calling for a renewal. And, does the ocean do that for you? Okay. So if you want to improve in all of those other areas, a trip to the beach might just really serve you. Elbow, elbow. Did you hear that? I love it. Dan?
Thunderbird and spiritual.
Thunderbird and spiritual. Okay, that's all about